Welcome to CTO Think, a podcast about leadership, product development, and tech decisions between two recovering chief technology officers. Here are your hosts, Don Vandemark and Randy Burgess.
Hey, Don, what's going on?
Actually been real quiet week. Just everything plugging along. Nothing real new. No new significant development. No new. We're still just working through the security upgrades we talked about previously. So nothing exciting on my end. How about you?
I don't know if I talked about this. I did get promoted.
Congratulations.
But it was like, it felt like, I started doing the job before the title was given to me, which is fine. And I don't really care about that stuff too much. But I got promoted. It's just a managerial, like a move from lead to manager. Like for what that means to hierology. And we're doing some changes on product. And so there'll be different people working with the team and stuff. So, but this kind of leads into what I wanted to talk about today, because I am now moving into a more managerial role.
Right.
Hierology engineering is largely 30 people, all remote. So all of our collaboration is through Zoom on video, Slack on chat, and Google Docs for document, spreadsheets, that kind of thing.
Right.
And lately, with the team that I've been with for about 9 months now, I started to notice a problem between myself, the product managers, and myself and the people I'm talking to, where I'm using my hands on the video to discuss workflows, but it's not getting the idea across, because waving a hand doesn't instill in someone's brain how things are talking to each other in a system. And we had a 1 week on site that we do two on sites a year at Hierology. And one day, myself and a product manager grabbed a whiteboard, took it to the lunchroom, and just started talking about some concepts. And people started to gather around, and we started getting more people talking. And I was like, oh my God, this is what we're missing as a remote team. I don't want to be in an office every day to do this, because that's not, I love remote.
Sure.
But I want to get that back. And I started thinking, how do we best as a remote team convey visual explanation? And I started, of course, thinking about, I think we've talked about it in the past, the Microsoft, what do you call those things? With the pen, like the touchscreen pen.
The Microsoft Surfaces.
Yeah, the Surface thing. And we're a Mac shop. We don't have any Windows machines, and I sure as heck don't want to introduce Windows to my environment. So then I started looking around, and I found, I started looking around at what artists use, because you cannot draw on a tab on a MacBook very well. There's not really any, like, you're not going to use the touchpad to really do that stuff.
Right.
And so I found this device that's only been out about 6 months, I think, called the Wacom, Wacom One. And it's essentially a iPad. It's like a full-sized iPad. I think it's like a 13-inch screen that plugs into your MacBook Pro like an external monitor. And the only difference is that it doesn't have any kind of operating system. It's basically just a monitor that allows for a smart pen or whatever to be used as the mouse, the pointer.
Sure.
I hook it into my laptop. It registers immediately as a fourth screen or a third screen, because I have two permanent ones I usually use that are now installed on my wall above my desk. And I'm able to use Google Jamboard, which is kind of like Google Docs for drawing, like a whiteboard. that allows collaboration, and I can draw with a pen to show workflows, ideas, systems talking to each other.
Right.
So like that's what I'm trying. To me, it's been a big problem. I showed this to another product manager. He thinks he's worth trying. The device costs like $400.
Right.
And so, my question to you is, have you tried, like, how are you getting past, have you seen this problem in your own teams, and how are you getting past it?
Well,
If
I
so.
think, yeah, I think the number one problem is the problem you came up with and the solution you came up with, which is the actual input for it. Sharing pictures, sharing whiteboard things like that. That's not an issue as far as sharing images. But the actual input of being able to naturally draw like you would on a whiteboard or like you would on paper, that's always the issue.
Yeah.
And Wacom's been around forever
Yeah.
for artists, so I'm sure their product is pretty nice. So you've solved the hardest part of it, I think, which is what's the best way for us to do it. Whether it's what you've got there, which is a monitor you can draw on, which is great, and a Microsoft Surface would work the same for the most part. Or a Wacom tablet, which is just a pin and what's the term they use? It's not pad, but essentially a pad with a pen
Yeah.
that you can draw on and then see the results on the monitor. So you're not drawing on the monitor, but you can see what you're drawing as you draw.
But the
Um,
problem for that one is, and I didn't test it to see, those are only like $100 compared to the
that's
400.
why I mentioned it. Go ahead.
Yeah. But if you take the pin away, how do you find the spot on the screen if back to the arrow? Like, we're talking, like, let's say you're going to write the word server and
Sure.
you type SER and you move your pin away. How do you get it right back to next to the V or SER? Like, how do you get the V on there without
I,
having to, like,
I,
that's where
I don't disagree. I think if you write it in one thing, your hand knows how to write letters next to each other without
yeah,
seeing them for the
yeah,
most
yeah,
part. But it's perfectly valid for you to say, I wrote server here and I drew a circle around it, and I wrote client here and I drew a box around it, and now I got to draw an arrow between the box and the circle, and I don't know exactly where to do it. So you kind of have to tap the screen until you tap the tablet until you can find it. Now, that may not be how those work. That they may be pressure sensitive to where you can lay the pin on it and it
yeah.
doesn't mark it, but it does show up on the screen, so that when you apply pressure, that's when it actually marks it. I don't know 100%, but that sounds right.
Yeah. Now, did you buy a Surface? You have a Surface.
I have a Surface. Yeah, I've had one for
How,
a while.
how often do you use that to share the Surface screen with a remote person and draw something to explain?
I use it more often. The thing I use the Surface Pen the most for is to sign PDFs. Um, Other than that, I don't use it to. It's once every 3 to 6 months that I'll actually use it to draw to express something, to
Mm-hmm.
express an idea. But I don't have the size team that you're talking about necessarily either.
Well, I don't even think that the size of the team matters, really.
To some degree, it does, because size of the team dictates how many ideas are out there.
Yeah.
So to some degree, it does.
How much does it matter to you if it's all just chicken scratch type drawings versus, oh, that's a real arrow? That's a graphical representation of an arrow.
If we if
Or,
we were if we were in a office, we'd all be going to a whiteboard and not using a graphical representation of an arrow. We'd be using chicken scratch.
but is that Is that enough?
Depending on what the purpose is, it's plenty good enough for me. If it's just to express ideas to get everybody around it, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
If you're trying to sell the idea externally or up the chain, you may want to formalize it a bit more.
Yeah. How much would this matter for executive discussions? Or would this not even be something that you all would do? Like it's only a technical engineering thing.
I can see at times when, so as a CTO trying to explain an idea to a CEO, pictures help. And one way you would do that in a regular office is you'd go to a whiteboard, you'd use paper. So in that scenario, chicken scratch works just fine.
Yeah.
Again, we don't have that need all that often. It comes up a couple times a year.
Okay. Yeah, like I don't know how big a deal it will be. I know I've done a poor job of like I try hand waving and like my point at in a direction, and I'm just like I don't know if this is getting across. But then when you get on a whiteboard, it seems like people come to a conclusion faster. It's the I understand what
Right.
you're talking about.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, I don't believe in it as much of a interviewing technique. I think whiteboard interviews are kind of BS, but unless you're talking about concepts, like, hey, I went to talk about your understanding of concepts.
The technique known as whiteboarding, I agree with. Having a whiteboard when you're interviewing is a good thing.
But making people write code on a whiteboard is BS.
Right. Yes. Yeah, whiteboarding, the technique. Agreed.
Yeah. But like I'm just at the beginning of it. Like I knew I didn't. The Surface is an amazing machine or amazing software paired with the touchscreen. And the nice thing about I would say the nice thing about the Wacom is that I don't care about software. Like this, well, I do care about software, but I don't care about software specific to like, iPad software, or if it works on a browser or if it works on a MacBook, that's what I care about. But I don't have to say, like, I don't have to buy an iPad at whatever they cost for a good one, which I'm guessing is $700 to $800, or am I off on that?
Yeah, that's how much a Surface is, and I'm sure you could get an iPad Mini for less, for sure.
Who buys iPad Mini?
Well, that's what that may show how very little I know the whole iOS market is.
I'm gonna look up the price. Oh yeah, okay. I'm right. All right, 11-inch iPad Pro is $800.
You can get a Surface for that.
For $800, yeah. But that's what I'm saying is a tablet with some power is going to run you about $800, and this monitor is about half that.
Right. And the only I would push back only a little is if you're talking about 30 people, is it worth $12,000 or is it worth $3,000 to go down to a Wacom pad?
Well, the other flip side is, what if I'm the only person with the ability to draw?
Well, that's what I'm saying. You have to buy 30 of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So is it worth 12,000 or 3,000? If you can spend the 12,000, sure. What you're recommending is a good idea for something that's going to get used a couple times a week.
Yeah, like I would have to be convinced that people would use it enough, because I haven't done it enough yet to even say that this was a good purchase.
Right.
I feel in my bones that I have missed out on explanations in the last 2 months that would have been helped tremendously by this approach. So sure. I'm waiting for the next one to kind of come up.
But then you're going to be the one. You're going to be the only one drawing.
Yes, which as a conniving manager who wants to maintain power, maybe
and,
that's
and it's not bad as a proof of concept for you to start that way, and as people are talking, draw it out and
yeah.
see if what you're doing is matching what they are trying to express.
Yeah.
But I do think you have to spread it a little to see if it really works. And
Now
again, it's
there,
only going to get used maybe a couple times a week.
yeah, and there is. So what I have started doing is I've started to say, okay, I'm going to be drawing a lot of circles for services, and I'm going to be drawing a lot of rectangles to represent like our monolith application. These are things that I don't need to keep drawing over and over. Like, so I'm building up some assets so that I can pull in email
Yeah,
service. And
sure.
then it's kind of like, oh, it doesn't look quite as bad as my horrible looking arrows and my chicken scratch writing. And it's almost like, hey, we know this template of our layout of the system, and I'm just going to be drawing arrows to represent flows and things talking to each other. Um, so that's kind of one pathway I'm going down. Now, Jamboard, as just to talk about the software, is really damn cool for like how much it costs, which is like nothing on top of Google Apps or Google
Sure.
Drive.
Sure.
You could like with using the web version, using that, I should say, using the iPad or iPhone version, it will do optical character recognition and turn your your drawn letters into words, and it will also take shapes and turn them into, like, if you draw a circle, it'll go kind of to an oval. If you do a square, it'll hit a square, a rectangle, triangles, that kind of thing. It'll just convert it for you into a graphical representation. It doesn't do that on the web version, but that is still a cool feature. You can do a pen. You can do any color of pens. You can do markers and highlighters and pencils of different like width of the weight of the drawing.
Right.
You got an eraser. You can pull in images off of Google Drive or your computer. They've got this wand thing where you can kind of like pin like a circle around and then it fades out. So you can just emphasize something when you're sharing it. And they've got notes. They have post-it notes. So and then the other, if you really want to go crazy, you can buy a $5,000 whiteboard, which is pretty much a gigantic Android screen that works with the Jamboards. Like, it's designed
Sure.
where it tracks the writing and then puts it up for everyone to see.
Sure. High schools
So
and colleges have those.
yeah, exactly. I think the education market is what they targeted for it. So I don't think we necessarily need that because I don't know how many people are in the office that I'd be doing that with. But
Yeah,
the,
but you need to convince upper management that you need it at your home office to hang on your wall.
but yeah, but that's the thing is I don't even want. I thought about, honestly. I thought about, oh, what if I put, because there's a device that lets you hang a camera over a whiteboard
Sure.
and it traces the drawings on the board and puts them onto online. And I thought about, like, that thing cost $600. Then I thought about the size of my office, the way I have it laid out, the fact that I would stand up a lot to do it. And I was like, you know what? I wouldn't use that much. I just don't see that happening for me in my office setting in a remote structure. So I didn't go down that path. And again, that would have cost, I think it's more than 600. That might have been an old model. Like,
Sure.
it's at least in closer to the $1,000 range. Plus you want a sturdy whiteboard and probably there's special markers or some kind of crap.
Right.
So yeah, this was the balance of, I need a screen and enough reviews about this brand. Like you said, Wacom's been around a long time. a lot of people with serious drawing talent like it. I'm like,
Right.
well, I don't have any of that talent, so I don't care about the fine detail that they need, but I at least want it to respond correctly, and that is what it does really well. So far, it hasn't. I can't find anything other than the price that I'm like, oh, this is a bad or a good idea. Like $200 would be what I'd prefer, but I don't think you get a screen with this capability at that price point. At least not yet.
No, and I don't. I find it hard to believe that that would ever happen. Again, because it's not like it's new technology.
Yeah.
It's been around quite a while. Now, where you're gonna start to see the difference, and this is where I'll push back just a little. If you were to go get a very cheap Android tablet and use a stylus on it,
Mm-hmm.
that probably serves the same purpose if Jamboard works on an Android tablet,
Which I think it would,
which I
given
think it would.
Google. Yeah.
So that is your least expensive option to do exactly what you're trying to do, which is draw on the thing itself.
Yeah. And so yeah, like that would be. I didn't test it on a Fire. Like Amazon Fires
Sure,
are probably the best color screen
but you don't need the
tablets.
best either.
No, you don't. And that's
And
what.
and
And
and and
Jamboard's
that's
not the best.
right. And I don't know. And that's where it all comes back to. You've got to figure out what works for your group and what works for the budget, because it if it's only a couple times a week or less, then maybe that's good enough that people can just pull that out whenever they need it and use it.
Yeah.
Like the one you have, it's sitting there on your desk now, staring at you, going, "Use me," and you're not going to use it all that often. Or do you use it for your Spotify playlist when you're not drawing on it?
I have used it as an additional screen for certain things when I'm not using it to draw. To draw things,
Sure.
um, because God knows, like I am now so far away from being able to use a laptop single screen by itself effectively, compared to I just want to see everything on its own spot,
Sure.
And on my own personal MacBook, I can only get two screens remote. Sorry. I can only do two external screens on my personal MacBook because of the limitations of the uh, display driver. But on my company's laptop, I got all the good stuff, so it can do I think up to four, and I'm only using three of them.
Sure.
But it did require me to. I had my external monitors on a stand attached to my desk, and I had to go and buy a wall mount, which was not that hard to do, and just hook them up so that I could open up the desk space for the other computers and now the Wacom One tablet.
Right.
So yeah, it caused me to spend some. Um, I spent more money. I got a promotion, got some more money, and then quickly spent it on technology. So I guess that's the whole point, right?
Well, you shouldn't have to necessarily spend your more money on technology for your job. You should get the company to do it. But yes.
I haven't asked them yet because I don't know that it's going to work. We're still
Right.
in the test scenario. But I do know that I've run into this problem more than once where I'm like, I wish I could explain what I'm about to talk to someone about, a non-technical person. So I'm pretty confident that I can use it for other projects that I'll be working on. And so I'm not concerned too much. I just don't know, is it of true value to the new management role with more people? And my role for the last 9 months has been largely back end with working with Go.
Sure.
And now I'm moving back into a role of React and front end work. So I feel like I'm going to have more visual wireframing level discussions that otherwise I wouldn't be able to do quickly.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm hoping this comes out, but
I would almost, I think you got to prove it on your side first.
Yeah.
And then you may have to go one step further and prove it or prove the corollary of trying an Android tablet or just a Wacom tablet, something, trying a less expensive option and seeing if that works just as well or close to just as well. And if so, then you've got a shot at getting it for everyone. I don't know your company, and I don't know if that much money is something that they're like, oh yeah, we can send that out to everyone for something they'll use 1 or 2 times a week.
Well, I think, it's all about value. It's where, people that, I think any manager in a remote situation or any company looking at remote versus in-house, the in-house people always think that there's tremendous value to be retained to be for the wireframing example, and like the whiteboarding in the office is a huge benefit that remote people don't get a lot of. And I agree with that, but I also don't think that that's like you should just kick remote to the curb because you don't do it in an office together. Like I'm trying to fill the gaps to maintain this remote work, which I adore so much now. But the other flip side is education, because when I taught a boot camp, I was in a classroom setting with a traditional chalkboard. And I walk in, there'd been some bio teacher that had been writing a bunch of stuff on the chalkboard, which looked like chicken scratch and didn't make any sense to me. But I had a lot of trouble with conveying ideas to students because I didn't have a good drawing palette. It was, when you have chalk on a blackboard and the blackboard is not dark because there's been so much erasing before, it's like, okay, I can't get ideas across very well because I'm just using my hands.
Yeah, it's hard to see.
And so part of my new role is working more. We're going to kind of go in a direction of hiring less experienced people and work and building, like teaching and building them up. And I'm like, I need something better to express concepts if I'm going to teach stuff. So that's the other area that I wish I'd had something like this before. And I'm going to kind of roll with it and see where it goes.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what ends up happening as far as wider adoption.
That's all I got, though. I don't have enough verified results to say, is this good or bad? I just, it's been something on my management / leadership wish list is to solve this gap that I've felt in the remote mode. And I feel like this is a good first step. We'll just have to see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm interested to see.
And maybe when I have some awesome looking whiteboard examples that aren't proprietary, I can show you what they are.
Sounds good. All right. Well, anything else for this week?
No, that's about it for now.
All right. Sounds good. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Later.
Thanks for listening to the CTO Think podcast. Show notes and previous episodes can be found on our website at ctothink.com. Reviews on Apple iTunes are always appreciated and help promote the show. Patreon contributions help us to produce episode transcripts, which allow people that are deaf or hard of hearing to access the show. If you have feedback, ideas, or want to be a guest, please email us at hello@ctothink.com. Show music is Dumpster Dive by Mark Wallach, licensed by PremiumBeat.com. Voiceover work by MeganVoices.com. You'll hear from us next week.